think I'll be able to get him.
He's too far out.
You got him.
What would you do if your home, your entire neighborhood even, was destroyed? Where would you go? What would you eat? These questions may seem far-fetched, but this nightmare scenario is exactly what is happening to the animals of Ecuador's tropical dry forests, as their habitat is almost completely gone due to human development. Living with people isn't possible for a lot of wildlife because there are too few resources and far too many unknown dangers. But there are some creatures here that have truly beaten the odds and become incredible stories of survival. And tonight, we're setting out to find an animal that could be the most successful of them all. The common opossum. My name is Harrison, and this is Evan. We're twin brothers on a mission to help you become an insider in the natural world by connecting you with fascinating life stories like these. And to do this, we are exploring on a very special agricultural ranch where some of South America's most legendary animals exist right alongside people. Opossums are said to be better adapted to living in human civilization than almost any other mammal. And our goal is to show you how they are able to survive here so effectively, because their story can teach us a lot about what animals need to continue on when they are forced to move in with us. There are many impressive survivors on the ranch, and as we started looking around, it did not take us long to find our first target. Because not only are they adaptable enough to live anywhere they want around here, they're pretty hard to miss.
I think I just saw a huge toad hopping through the grass here. Yeah, right here. Hey, dude, look at this guy. Come here, buddy. Wow, they're actually quite quick for an animal of this size. But look at that guy. This is a South American giant toad, Rhinella horribilis, and this is a very impressive amphibian. In fact, the largest species of frog or toad that we are able to find here on the ranch. These frogs can get over a pound. In fact, this is not even a fully grown animal. What he's actually doing is puffing out his body to make him look as big as possible, so it looks like it would be much harder for a predator to swallow. And we are being covered in flies, and this is actually what this animal would be out here eating. Pretty much anything they can fit into their mouth, they will try to consume, but they love invertebrates. Big earthworms and beetles and moths would probably be the main menu items for this guy tonight, but they are incredibly robust in terms of their size, but also in terms of their survival ability. This is not the easiest environment for amphibians to live in, and oftentimes the species here are tied to the bodies of water that are able to exist all year round. It does get very dry during certain parts of the year here in Western Ecuador, but the giant toads are so well adapted for this habitat that they can live out here in the grassy areas and move around at night when it's not too hot, well away from water. So this species would be able to make use of all of the habitat around here. They're incredibly impressive survivors and definitely a species that we wanted to highlight out here. So we are gonna let this guy back, but how cool is that? The biggest amphibian we could have found tonight.
Amphibians are not often thought of as very adaptable or resilient animals, but the unique biology of the South American giant toad gives them a huge leg up in responding to the challenges of human disturbance. Areas cleared for human use typically have a lot less vegetation than the native habitat, and this reduction of cover leaves the animals here more exposed to predators and to the harsh, hot and dry conditions of this region. However, the giant toad's large body and thick skin allow them to tolerate a wide range of temperatures, and it also makes them much more resistant to water loss than other amphibians. Their size also helps protect them from predators, and combined with their potent toxins, these guys are a tough species to make a meal out of. Competition for food resources is particularly intense in disturbed areas, and since giant toads take such a high diversity of prey, they are able to survive better than species that are dependent on a particular food source. There's no doubt that human disturbance puts a lot of stress on wildlife, but South American giant toads aren't the only capable survivors out here, and it wasn't long before we encountered another interesting species making a living for itself on the ranch.
You got a gecko?
Yep, I got him.
Whew. Tried to slip up this tree here. Whew, now this is actually really cool. This is a coastal leaf-toed gecko. And what's super neat about this guy is that they're actually a native species here in Ecuador. They're found all down the western coast of the country. Now there are a ton of invasive geckos here on the ranch. We see them absolutely everywhere, so it's really encouraging to see a native species like this guy actually thriving here. And it's not surprising that they do, because coastal leaf-toed geckos do really well in human areas. They'll often move into pastures or areas with lots of crops because they will be hunting any kind of little invertebrate. They'll take beetles and spiders and butterflies, even in such a heavily disturbed habitat like we have here on the ranch. So it's really encouraging because it means that at least some of the native dry forest fauna is still able to cling on here. Such a cool little gecko, but I think we will let him get back on his way to hunting. This is a nocturnal species, so he'll be out here all night eating all kinds of little insects and things. Let's see if he'll just run up the tree here. So cool.
One of the reasons that leaf-toed geckos are so successful in human spaces is actually their amazing climbing ability, which you may know is much better than many other lizards. Geckos have large, incredibly sticky toe pads that allow them to cling to virtually any surface, even metal and glass. This means that they can hunt around all of the human structures in the environment, and with the huge amount of insects that are attracted to the lights, the buildings serve as an all-you-can-eat buffet for these lizards. That said, seeing such a cool animal in the trees instead of on the houses encouraged us to keep searching in the vegetation, and this strategy led us to the find of the night. As we were scanning along a small hill, we flushed a furry creature out of the undergrowth, but as soon as we registered that it was an opossum, it had already escaped up the nearest tree. We knew that our only chance of being able to share this animal with you was for us to climb up after it and try to safely get it down. So without a second thought, I worked my way up onto the branch that it had fled to. It was out of reach for me to be able to grab it up there, so we switched our tactic to trying to get it to jump back down to the ground. Opossums are quite tough animals, and they are known to try to escape from predators by jumping pretty large distances if they're being pursued. As I gently shook the tree, he climbed to the very end of the branch and leapt all the way to the ground completely unharmed. Then he took off into the vegetation where our friend Emilio was waiting to make the capture. After getting him back into the open, I quickly ran over to take a look at our first ever opossum in South America.
All right, come here, you. It's okay. It's all right. Hi there. This is a common opossum, one of the marsupials that exists here in western Ecuador that we were really hoping to find. We knew that they exist here on the ranch, but finding one is never a guarantee. This animal, like most marsupials here in South America, is nocturnal. So as we're out here night herping, this was really our only shot of being able to see this animal in the wild. This is absolutely amazing. All of that hissing and posturing and opening of that mouth is all to tell me that he means business and he does not want anything to do with us. And that is completely fair. This animal would fall prey to a lot of larger species here on the ranch. So he really believes that his life is in danger, but it isn't. We're just trying to show off a mammal that probably most people have never gotten to see in the wild before. Now, if you notice, I am not restraining him even with a closed hand. You can see I pretty much have one part of my finger wrapped around his tail there, and this is doing him absolutely no harm at all, because these animals are incredibly adept climbers, and their tails are perfectly evolved to that end. They can actually support their entire body weight with their tail alone. They have prehensile tails, so they can grasp onto branches and other objects, and that allows him to climb extremely effectively. Their legs, their ankles, their wrists are all extremely dexterous, and it allows them to shoot right up trees or move incredibly quickly across the ground. These animals are amazingly well evolved for the habitats in which they live, and it's actually not surprising to see a common opossum like this in an area around people. These animals are regularly known to inhabit areas where people are also living. They're extremely adaptable, quite cute. You are adorable, little one. And we are not going to spend any more time with him than we need to get some shots and show you one of the most beautiful marsupials that we have here in Ecuador.
We've seen that the common opossum is able to do well in human-modified areas, but how can they adapt so readily to these difficult conditions when so many other species can't? Easily their biggest advantage is their generalist lifestyle. Common opossums can utilize a huge variety of habitats like dry forests, rainforests, scrublands, mountains, and frequently human settlements as well. And in fact, they even seem to seek out areas developed by humans because they offer easier access to food sources. Another benefit of their generalist survival strategy is that their diet is amazingly diverse. As opportunistic omnivores, they will eat pretty much anything that crosses their path, including a wide array of invertebrates, many kinds of reptiles and amphibians, birds, small mammals, carrion, fruit, nectar, and even human trash. These marsupials have very strong stomachs that allow them to digest a broader range of foods than most other mammals, so they can survive successfully even in areas with limited food sources. With their impressively varied habitat and diet preferences, the common opossum is arguably the most resilient of all South American mammals, so we knew as soon as we saw this guy that we couldn't pass up the chance to share his incredible life story. We don't want to stress him out too much though, so it's time to let him return to his nightly activities.
He's pretty freaked out, and understandably so, which is why we're gonna get him right back into the tree where we first found him. You're okay, buddy. Now watch this. He's gonna go right back up the tree, or down the base. What an insane encounter. Couldn't be more excited.
The common opossum's incredible story of survival is proof that there is hope for wildlife in Ecuador despite the many threats that they face. But few species are as lucky as opossums are to be able to adapt this way. The key to the success of the animals we found tonight is their amazing versatility, because their ability to adjust to so many different conditions means that they can successfully keep up with the rapidly changing world around them. The problem is, most of the wildlife of the dry forest has evolved to fill much more specific ecological niches that don't translate as readily into life in human settlements. This is a complicated problem with no clear-cut solutions, and the stories go much farther than you think. If you want to dive deep into how different animals are adapting to human expansion in Ecuador and find out what makes some species successful while others face the threat of extinction, check out this video where we investigate how the bird life of the ranch makes their living and compare that to some spectacular animals living in the tropical dry forest that you will not want to miss. And with that, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.